information contained in this podcast is an expression of opinion and does not constitute investment advice. This is the Gold Money Podcast with Andy Duncan, keeping you up to date with expert opinion on precious metals and the markets.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to this Gold Money Podcast with me, your host, Andy Duncan. Today I'm speaking to Thomas Jakob, the president of a campaign team in Switzerland who are trying to use the Swiss democratic process to introduce a Swiss gold franc into that landlocked European country. You may have heard this being discussed recently by Egon von Greyerz and Eric King on King World News. Good morning, Thomas.
Well, good morning, Andy.
Can you tell us about your organisation and its structure?
Gladly. I am the initiator of the idea. It's been 2 years since it got introduced in Parliament. That's when it really got started. I'm the president of the association that we founded after the parliamentary process took hold. It's a year and a half ago. My vice presidents are Dr. Luchsinger. He is a mathematician in the Zurich University. Then Dr. Karl Zweifel, he is a medical doctor. Then we have Mark von Rohr, financial specialist, Dr. Pamini, an economist, and Dr. Ledois, also an economist, and then Maurizio Galli for IT, and my wife for the money as for the moment. These are the board members. These are the main key players now.
Do you have any political representatives at all?
Yes, we have the Monsieur Luchsinger and Paolo Pamini and Mark von Rohr. They are from the FDP, that's a center party. And then we have Zweifel. He is from the Swiss Popular Party, the main opposition party. So we're well established.
What actually is the Swiss gold franc? Can you tell me what it would look like if you got this through the Swiss democratic process?
The coins themselves, we envision that they are standardized by the government. So the government establishes what form and what gold content they shall have, but private producers shall then produce them as they see fit. And the special thing about it is they should be in gram, they should be easily recognizable and easily understandable, starting from 0.1 gram of gold in the center of normal coins, which will make them available from like $5 onward up to whatever.
So they're not going to be in ounces or half ounces or anything?
It could be ounces also. The smallest one needs to be really, really small and inexpensive and easily understandable. Since ounces are not familiar in Central Europe.
Can you tell me why you started your campaign 2 years ago?
I discussed the idea the year before it got introduced in Parliament, and then a member of Parliament approached me and said, I'd like to introduce the idea in a politically concrete form as a parliamentary initiative, and that's when it got started.
So what drove you to initiate this campaign in the first place?
I've always been interested in economics and in fundamental ideas of economics. And of course, gold, money, of course, is a topic that's very prominent nowadays. And gold is a very interesting part of this discussion of the monetary system today. And I just had this idea of, like a parallel currency introduction of the gold standard again. And that got a very good reception on the political level and on the intellectual level, and that's why I pursued it.
Many people around the world might be unaware that Switzerland is like everywhere else in having a pure fiat money currency backed by nothing. The Central Bank of Switzerland, the Swiss National Bank, also has a policy of pegging the Swiss paper franc directly to the paper euro, supposedly to help the Swiss export and tourist industries. It also has a near-zero interest rate policy, like many other central banks. Why do you think the Swiss National Bank abandoned a centuries-long successful policy of a strong Swiss franc? And what effect is this monetary policy having on Switzerland?
Well, the Swiss National Bank was caught between a rock and a hard place, with the Swiss franc being involved in all the fiat currencies all around us, and relatively stable, very small currency, very small amount of money floating. And of course, foreigners had a great effect on our exchange rate, and they had to do something. And it's not the first time that they really intervened, almost pegging the Swiss franc to a different currency. It's happened in the late 70s also with the German mark. It's, of course, much more difficult nowadays to get out of it. It is not really the issue for us, for the gold coin currency, that we envision. I'm sort of glad I don't have to solve the problem of the Swiss National Bank. There are only different complicating options for them. But the gold coin currency is something completely different, independent from today's monetary system, and that's the attractive thing about it.
So how's your plan going to create the Swiss gold franc? Are you winning?
Yes, of course. No, ever optimistic, of course. No, one of the mottos is, our mottos is, there is nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come. And the gold and money is an issue that's here to stay. And I think we, with the parallel currency idea, have a politically feasible and also non-threatening way of introducing gold into the monetary system again. The goal of our campaign is to amend the Swiss constitution with legalizing gold coins as we envision them. And there are two ways of getting this constitutional amendment passed. One is the parliamentary process, and the other one is a popular initiative via collecting signatures. Either way, the population will have to vote on it, and we are pursuing both ways. The parliamentary process, the first round, they just closed, so to speak. We introduced it a year and a half ago. It got introduced by the Swiss Popular Party, which was the wrong party to carry it, politically the wrong party. So it got voted down along party lines. But we talked with many parliamentarians in Parliament and from all different parties, and they were all interested for different reasons. So we're going to introduce that again, but through a different party. That's one process. And the other one is that we're organizing now to collect the signatures to get it on the ballot.
So you say it's going to be a parallel currency, so you're not going to try to replace the Swiss paper franc. It's going to be a separate thing like the kind of Ron Paul idea.
That's the most important part about this idea. It's not establishing the gold standard in the established currencies, but it's something besides. I call it a complementary currency, and we are emphasizing not so much even the medium of exchange function of the currency, but rather the savings function of this gold coin currency. Because as a medium of exchange, the fiat paper currencies are still okay, and they will probably remain so for a long time, hopefully for a while to come. The problem of the fiat currencies is that they are losing value as an investment. And that's where the gold coin kicks in, so to speak, and it gives an additional alternative, a complement to the problems of the paper money. If you're going to call it a currency, it's a parallel currency. That's correct.
So there's going to be no capital gains taxes on it, no transaction taxes on it. It will be a money, but you envisage it being mostly a savings money.
Exactly. Because the paper money is okay for daily transactions. It has the problems as a savings, as a means for savings. And of course, if the paper money remains halfway decent for daily transactions, they will run in parallel. And it's easy to envision that they can run in parallel.
If we can have a time frame for this, if you keep being successful as this democratic process rolls out, how long will it be before we see a Swiss gold franc?
Well, it's going to depend on three factors. On the one hand, how the established paper money develops, whether it gets worse or whether it gets better. If it gets worse, obviously the interest will be more intense. Then it depends on publicity that we get. That also depends on the first factor. And then, of course, it's always a matter of money. If we have enough money, we can collect the signatures rather quickly. If we have to do it grassroots, it takes longer. Now, as time frame, the most optimistic, if somebody came today and said, how much money do you need to collect the signatures within 2 months? Then, of course, we can envision this being realized within a year. That's theoretically possible. Now, realistic, these things take 2-3 years, yes, to get realized, including the voting process.
I should imagine the Swiss federal government is opposed to your ideas. What do you think your educated chances of success are?
We have talked with exponents of the Swiss National Bank, and the interesting thing is if we had to introduce it the way we introduce it now, much refined from 2 years ago, I may say, it's not threatening. It's a complement to today's monetary system, and they can even help our national bank in their main problem. Their main problem is that people buy Swiss paper francs as a liquid means of as a liquid form of investment. And that's what causes the problems for the Swiss franc. That's why it got pegged. Now, and of course, a very liquid form of gold coins like we envision could help the Swiss franc in its safe haven function. It can alleviate these problems. And we have talked also with established economists, with all the most important established economists, and we've been able to, if not get their support, but at least avoid opposition from them. They think it's an interesting experiment.
If you do succeed, I actually envision that a lot of people around the world will start using this as a currency rather than as a savings vehicle. And if that happens, do you think the Keynesians around the world in all the other central banks might fight back? Could they perhaps ban the international use of this Swiss gold franc?
Well, I suppose any country can ban the use of foreign currencies within their territory. It's just going to be politically hard. If the Swiss people have the freedom to do this, it'll be hard to argue why others shouldn't have that freedom. I mean, looking at it more from a distance, all we're talking about is making gold more easily, more practically, and legally safely accessible to the small-time saver. And there is no, I mean, it's hard to argue against this proposal. I mean, what do you want to tell your population? We want to treat you worse than the Swiss government treats their population. It's hard to argue against it.
If this comes off in a couple of years or 2 or 3 years, you might have been responsible for reintroducing a government-backed gold currency. How does this make you feel?
I don't know yet. I'm very enthusiastic about the process, and I'm not worried about how it's going to develop or what I'm going to feel like then. And of course, there are many other, like my board members, who are all pulling up the same cart, and many other people responsible along with us, and the web designer and so on. So it's not only my baby.
I'm very excited about the whole thing, but before we go, do you have any website links our listeners can go to if they want to help you out or find out more about your campaign?
Absolutely. Incidentally, you were an important part about it as well. You did the first interview 2 years ago. The website is www.goldfranc.org or goldfranc.ch, either one. We've worked hard on a much extended and much more attractive website. It's going to go online beginning of November. So you might want to wait for that or look into it again beginning November 2012.
Excellent. Herzlichen Dank, Herr Thomas Jakob, for your time today on Gold Money Podcasts, and I hope that we'll be hearing more about your project as time rolls on.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and spread the word. That's one of the key factors.
Subscribe to the Gold Money newsletter at www.goldmoney.com to receive email updates on new articles, videos, and iTunes podcasts from our Gold Research section.
It's been 2 years since it got introduced in Parliament. That's when it really got started. I'm the president of the association that we founded after the parliamentary process took hold. It's a year and a half ago. My vice presidents are Dr. Luchsinger. He is a mathematician in Zurich University. Then Dr. Karl Zweifel. He is a medical doctor. Then we have Mark von Rohr, financial specialist. Dr. Pamini, an economist, and Dr. Ledois, also an economist, and then Maurizio Galli for IT, and my wife for the money.
As a democratic process to introduce a Swiss gold franc into that landlocked European country. You may have heard this being discussed recently by Egon von Greyerz and Eric King on King World News. Good morning, Thomas.
Well, good morning, Andy.
Can you tell us about your organization and its structure?
Gladly. I am the initiator of the idea.
The information contained in this podcast is an expression of opinion and does not constitute investment advice. This is the Gold Money Podcast with Andy Duncan, keeping you up to date with expert opinion on precious metals and the markets.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to this Gold Money Podcast with me, your host, Andy Duncan. Today I'm speaking to Thomas Jakob, the president of a campaign team in Switzerland who are trying to use the Swiss